Welcome to Raising OKC Kids Conversations with Metro Family. We will be releasing a series of select interviews curated from our National Parenting Summit that feature topics especially relevant to you, our podcast listeners. These interviews initially aired in early 2022 when the pandemic was still very top of mind for parents. While that time in our lives will always be a monumental reference point, these interviews and the information they provide stand the test of time. We hope you enjoy. I'm co-host Kirsten Holder from Metro Family Magazine, and I'm excited to jump into conversation with our next guest, the Chazz Lewis. He might be better known to many of you as Mr. Chazz, which he is currently called on his many viral TikTok videos, including the song about his name. And he currently has more than 250,000 followers, myself included, and I'm so excited you're here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to everyone out there and hopefully help them with whatever they're struggling with or just improve on whatever they want to improve on.
I have no doubt you will give us those tips. So just to give our listeners a little more background, Chazz's main goal is to empower activists and instill an empathetic mindset in children. And let me just say, he does this in such a fun and upbeat and memorable way. He is truly pushing the needle a little closer to world peace. Chazz earned his master's in executive leadership at American University and is constantly in teacher mode, teaching kids, parents, and educators how to raise and how to be a world changer. I personally love tuning into your messages on social media. They're so refreshing because they bring us back to the good points of social media, inspiration over comparison. I'm curious if you get this kind of feedback from your followers on TikTok, Instagram, and the other mediums, that your viewers appreciate you being a voice of helpful encouragement rather than one of guilt-ridden, here's what you should be doing type of advice.
Yeah. No, to be honest, I get such a wide range of feedback from such a wide range of people and a wide range of moods that day, with a wide range of perspectives, a wide range of upbringing. And but I do hear that a lot of just how helpful my content is and just showing kind of what to do. And I do show some of the traditional ways of parenting, and a lot of people will also say that like they feel seen. That's the way that they grew up, and that is, they struggle with some of the same things that I talk about in the videos of people who were raised in ways of shame and control and fear. So I really do try to see people and meet them where they're at, and just no matter where they're at, approach with empathy, so that I am in a better place to guide and help them. And they're going to be way more willing to take my guidance and to learn something new and try something new and scary, where they'll likely make mistakes and fail at least a few times. They're going to be way more likely to take that guidance from me when I am taking an empathetic approach and I'm not judging them. But that's all humans, right? And so that's not only the approach I take with the adult humans, but also with the child, the little humans. Empathy first.
Yes, well, and that definitely shines through. And I think that's why your messages are so well received, clearly with the number of followers you have. One of the most popular videos you have on your account is about encouraging teachers to use connection to motivate kids, just kind of like how you touched on, rather than using fear-based methods or dangling the carrot like sticker rewards. And you call this the improvenist journey. I'd love you to explain why those methods might not be most effective, and how we as parents can foster connection with our own kids to address behavior when it's not appropriate.
So yeah, I will answer the question by kind of telling you a little bit more about that video that you're referring to. That video was actually a video of, I was really telling my own story of kind of my own journey of getting to where I'm at, because a lot of times people don't think that that you were where they were, that you haven't tried the fear-based techniques or the shame or whatever, or the stickers. And most people I know try those methods. Even all the people who are, the experts in the field, who are, preaching the gentle, conscious, whatever parenting and teaching, everyone I know has been through a process where they didn't know what they were doing. And so, we tend to go into our default when we are overwhelmed, we don't know what we're doing, and we're going to go to our default, which is the way that our parents raised us, right? And we're going to say a lot, but maybe even say a lot of the same phrases. And in my particular journey in this video, it wasn't only influenced by my upbringing, but it was also influenced by when I first got into the room as a teacher, as a new teacher. It was influenced by the veteran teachers around me, because of course, like, you have the experience and I'm looking to you for, for guidance and help, because I don't know what I'm doing here. And a lot of the veteran teachers were using kind of the fear-based controls and, raising their voice. And that was the way. And I didn't really know. I didn't really feel comfortable with, yelling at the kids all the time. And so they were like, hey, no, like, it kind of like took me aside, like, hey, like, no, you need to like yell, like put some bass in your voice and like yell, shake their finger, take this thing away. And so like I tried it, but one, I didn't feel good about the way that I was teaching, the way that I was showing, like the person that I was showing up as. Like, I didn't want to be that dictator, like some people called it. Like, it feels to me, felt very dictatorish and just very, it just didn't feel good to be that person, especially having the experience of a child and experiencing all those teachers, right? I didn't want to be that person. One. Two, it never really helped. I just find myself yelling more and more and more and more, and children were having the same problems, right? There was no opportunity to even solve the problem because I'm just punishing them or yelling at them for not meeting my expectations. So nothing really got any better. And then three, I also saw how the way I was in the classroom impacted the way they were in the classroom with each other, right? So if I'm more aggressive and try to just get my way by using my power and controlling, I would see them exhibit those behaviors even more. And like pretty much doing the same thing that I would do to them in terms of using my power and control. And I would see it in the dynamic of like an older child who maybe have more verbal skills and maybe more kind of the, more like popular kids in the classroom, and maybe a child who's new or is having a harder time, and they would treat the child, the oftentimes the younger child, or maybe not as developmentally advanced, like I was treating them, using power, fear, and control. And from the outside looking in, when you're there and you're like, you don't know what to do, it's like, you'll justify and be like, well, like I kind of have to do it. It's nothing else. Like, I'm in survival mode. Like, this is all, these are skills I have access to. So this is what I'm going to do. But then when you take a step back and you observe and you see how children are taking what you're modeling and they're using it with other children, it's so much easier to kind of make that, to see that when it's not us, right? Because we will justify when it's us, when it's another child. Obviously, we're really good at like judging children's actions, like that's not good, like that's not okay. But then seeing your actions reflected in a child, it's easier to just see like, wow, this is kind of a wake-up call. And this is something that I've heard, in coaching thousands of, hundreds and hundreds of parents. It's something that I've heard a lot of times too, kind of a wake-up call for them as well. So all those reasons it's like, I need to find a different way. And so in looking for a different way, I'm like, okay, as you said, maybe not using the stick to kind of, metaphorically, whip them into shape to meet my expectations. Let me try the carrot to dangle in front of them so that they can, I use stickers and a bunch of like good jobs and to kind of control their behavior and use their kind of the state that they're in, the stage that they're in, where they really want adult approval and to be kind of validated by the adults, and they really, really care about that. And so my next thing, instead of punishing using fear, I'm going to use their need to connect with me, and I'm going to dangle this sticker, and I'm going to kind of use my connection as a condition of their compliance. So if they comply, then I'll connect and give you the carrot and good job and validate you and let you know you're a good person, right? And then I'm making my connection conditional. And so what happens there is, all right, your connection's conditional, my compliance is conditional on your connection, right? On giving me the sticker, right? And so, like, ask them to do something or want them to do something as simple as like being nice to each other, or just taking turns, or something, where, maybe I am trying to engage in this kind of collaborative process, but then it comes back to, well, am I going to get a sticker? I did that. Can I get a sticker for it? Right. And then it's like, you're really just doing this for the sticker. So when there's not a sticker present, or that I'm not dangling that carrot, that thing that you want, then you have no reason to, do the right thing. Right. And you were not even, again, same problem with fear and control. We're not really focusing and practicing on, like, okay, what was the problem? Or, what was the feeling that triggered the action, right? Let's talk about that. Let's process what happened. Let's kind of figure out what happened. Let's acknowledge what your concerns are. Let's acknowledge what the other person's concerns are. Is there a way that we can collaborate and meet in the middle? Can you understand? Can I help you understand what you were feeling and work through that feeling in a healthy way and give you a better way to solve that problem? Help you get your toy back in a better way that's not hitting without, dangling a sticker in front of someone. Can I help you get your toy back? Right. And so I stopped doing the stickers because I saw like it was just oh, can I get a sticker? Can I get a sticker? Can I get a sticker? And that's, besides being really annoying, I recognized that it wasn't really helpful, and it didn't really authentically solve the problems. So I went into the process that I was kind of just describing of understanding, helping them identify their feelings. Really, if I would kind of break it down in a shorter context of identifying their needs, helping them meet their needs, and teaching them to meet their own needs in a better way. Teaching them the skills needed to solve the problems in the situations that they find themselves in, right? I mentioned getting your toy back, right? How do you get your toy back? How do you, when you really want to go down the slide and the person's not going down the slide, how do you navigate that situation? What do you say? What do you do? What do you do if the person doesn't listen to you? Because realistically, everyone's got free will. Not every child, just because you say the right thing, is always going to comply peer to peer, right? How do we tap into our own self-control to solve our problems, right? Without, in a healthy way, without hurting someone else or hurting ourselves. And so that's where my focus started to go to after that. I realized that, okay, fear and control didn't work, and the dangling the stickers and, good jobs so that they, do what I want them to do, it wasn't helpful. And when I started to move into this process, the growth I saw was exponential in comparison to the other things that I was trying to use. And so why this is so powerful is, one, we are helping them identify their feelings and their emotions, which is, if we can just do that simply, there's so much more to do, but if we could just do that, there's so much more ahead of where most of us were growing up, because most of us have learned to ignore our feelings, ignore our emotions, which is why when we're in these situations and we get triggered and we're frustrated, we don't know how to handle those emotions. We don't know how to deal with our frustrations. We don't know how to navigate our emotions and solve problems without using power and fear and control, because that's most of what we've experienced in our lives, right? And I'm going to pause and let you ask more questions, because I think there's so much more I could say. I know you have more questions, but this does not only happen with parents and their children, or teachers and children. This happens in pretty much all parts of our lives. This happens in leadership a lot. And there are consequences for this kind of leadership that just uses fear and power and control to control their employees, and to get them to do what they want them to do, right? And it's the consequences are not only your, and you can insert employees or children. Not only will the people who you're leading, not only will they learn less skills, not only will, if you use the power and control method, not only will they be afraid to come to you when they make a mistake, not only will they, if they do comply because their survival depends on it, well, not only will they sabotage the work, not only will they talk about you behind your back and not have a good relationship with you, it will also impact overall productivity in a workplace, in your family, in a household, and in a classroom, because you're not moving forward solving problems. You're only punishing them and teaching them to hide the problems. So I'll take a break right there and allow you to ask some more questions.
I could have listened to you go on and on. I love what you talked about early on, that the toolbox that we have access to, and these are the tools that I was raised with. So these are the tools that I'm going to go to when I'm in my scarcity mindset, when I'm stressed, when I've worked a long day, when my kids are throwing tantrums over God knows what. And it's the same for teachers. I mean, it's the toughest job in the world, trying to get but I love the way that you're talking about kind of going for the root of the issue rather than the topical outcomes that you might see in the moment, because that does take more time and it takes more patience and consistency. But that's why we're talking to you today. So I am so excited that you're here. I personally have a toddler at home, so many of the things you're talking about were really resonating with me. Something in particular that you talk about online is I feel like my toddler and I are constantly butting heads over transitions in our household. And I love the self-regulation song that you act out on your account. Honestly, it's almost more helpful in helping me self-regulate as a parent when I sing it than it is for my toddler, but I'm hoping that modeling that you mentioned will eventually catch on to him as well. Can you share some of the songs that you found especially popular in helping in your own life while bringing a child through transitions?
Oh man, through transitions. I have such an assortment of tools for transitions, because you kind of need them, right? And you know what, for transitions, you really you don't necessarily need a specific song for a transition. Like I've used, in terms of getting from, so I'll give you an example of something that I use often, and I don't expect every parent or teacher to do this all the time, 100% of the time. But again, this is just a tool in your tool belt. And sometimes we look at this stuff, you mentioned like it takes more time to do this, and I would argue that it might take more time initially in that moment, but overall, over the long haul, it's going to take less time. And sometimes it doesn't. I don't even think in that moment, I don't even think that it's always necessarily true that it always takes more time in the moment, because when we do spend the time to consider consider the child and consider what their interests and what they care about in the moment, when we take that time to do that, there's typically a lot less friction in that transition, and we'll move through it a lot quicker. And when we're proactive, as opposed to put it on, you do just because I told you, just do it. How many times I have to tell you? You need to do it again. Why aren't you doing it? Oh, and then if they're a little bit older, then they talk back, and then we're like yelling about the talk, like, you don't talk to me that way, blah blah blah. And now we're yelling about something else, and we're not at the house, and now we've created a whole nother problem because we didn't you consider the child or care about what the child cared about first. And then they, yell at us and like, you know what? This is why I don't like you and I hate you. And then now we have another problem that we're talking about and we're dealing with. And now we have 3 problems as opposed to trying to deal with the one problem that we could have been proactive with in the first, like originally. And even when you're proactive, it's not always going to be perfect. So, and perfection is not the goal. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But to answer your question, some songs, something I do is one of my favorite things to do. Simple as row, row, row your boat. We're going from one thing to another thing, and we just pretend like we're going in on a boat ride. We're like, okay, we're gonna go on a boat ride to, I might make up a thing to Car Island, Playground Island, Backyard Island, whatever you want to call it, right? You really don't got to be too creative. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative. And I'm a creative person. So like, maybe it might come more easily to me to come up with these things off the spot, but I don't really spend a lot of times thinking about them. A lot of times they're just kind of on the spot. And kids are like, oh, it's good enough for me. Like Playground Island, like I don't, that's good enough for me. Like you don't have to create this whole elaborate story. But I will say, okay, we're gonna go to Playground Island. But first, let's get on our boat. Everyone get on our boat. Boop. And just sound effects. Again, engage them. They're engaged. It's a game. And this fits into caring about what they care about, because actually, I'll get to that at the end. Sorry for ADHD. So, let's get on the boat. Boop. Sound effects. They're into it. They'll be like, boop. All right, now hold on to your oars or hold on to your paddles, whatever word that they all identify, or you can introduce a new vocabulary word if you feel like it. But, if you're worried about the transition, I would just meet them where they're at. Hold your paddles. And then, all right, we're going to row our boat all the way to Car Island. Say it, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. And if I really want to mix it up, we're going far. Like I might be like, oh, wait, pause. Bird. It's a bird. Okay, let's go a little faster. Row, row, row. And then might go a little bit faster, right? That is a lot. It might sound like that takes a while, but it really, especially if it becomes like your thing, it really doesn't take that long. It takes a lot less time than constantly repeating yourself. And why haven't I told you? And you feel better about it by the time you get to the car, right? And then you can even, when you get to the car, you can even talk about being like, oh, that's now we're in our, maybe you're taking your boat to a rocket ship. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. It's imagination. They're young. Your child 3, doesn't matter. We're on a boat to a rocket ship. All right, now we're going to boost through the rocket ship, and then we're going to blast off. Count down with me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, blast. You turn on the car and you go. It's a great fun experience. It's a bonding moment. And, if you're like, I really need to get to this appointment at this time, I would suggest doing that rather than, you need to hurry up, go. How many times did I tell you, right? I would suggest doing that in terms of trying to get there more quickly. And I think that's going to be a lot more helpful. Do you have to do that all the time? No, but again, that is a tool that you can use. Another thing is just simple as sometimes it's like, do you want to crawl like a cat, or do you want to stomp like a dinosaur to the car, right? And all these things, the reason you're doing it is to really care about what the child cares about. I always say, care about what the child cares about, and they're going to be more likely to care about what you care about. Most of the time, us adults, we are so focused on what we care about, and we got blinders for what we care about. We need to be at an appointment. We need to be about 2 o'clock. You need to have your shoes on, and we need to get in the car right now. That's what we care about, and that's all. And that's all we care about. And so, sometimes even without any planning, sometimes without even a lot of warning, we will ask children, or really demand children, to stop doing something that they're really engrossed and really care about, whether it's Legos or on their tablet or playing with the dinosaurs, or maybe even just in their own little pretend play world, but they were in their world in full play mode, right? And then we're like, stop caring about what you care about and care about what I care about. No, it doesn't matter what you care about what I care about, do it now, right? And that's not really, no one would want that kind of treatment, really. No one would really do well or do their best with that, right? Think about the thing that you a hobby that you really like, you really enjoy on your, you do on your own time, on your free time. And as a parent, you're like, man, when is the last time I had a free time? But think about it, like think about that thing. Or maybe it's like Netflix, or maybe it's shopping, maybe it's swimming at the pool, maybe it's gaming, and you're in the midst of it, right? Maybe it's working out, and you get to the part and you're like, you're in it, you're working out, you're starting to laugh, and all of a sudden someone's like, stop what you're doing. I need you to do something for me. Stop caring about it. No, immediately, hard stop, do this thing because I think it's important. You're gonna feel some kind of feeling there. You're gonna feel an emotion there. And now you with, if you're, 25, 26, with your fully formed brain, you have more, and your experience, you have a little bit more of a, have way more of a capacity to do some perspective taking, to pause, to say, you know what? Maybe, this, what this other person is wanting me to do is really important to them. I can come back to the pool, or I can pause the Netflix or the game, or I can always do this another time. Breathe, regulate, pause. I can come back to it later, and I will go and help you. Your 3-year-old doesn't really have the capacity for that, right? And so, and sometimes we barely have the capacity for that, right? We struggle to do that. But think about how, frustrating it is when, your toddler interrupts you in something you're in the middle of. Like how much it takes, all that it takes for you not to just yell and be like, can you just leave me alone, right? Think about how much work that is, right? But we expect children to just do it on a dime without us even caring about, and sometimes even without a warning, right? But look, but if we give a warning, it's a completely different experience for us, right? And not to say that for children, they will still won't have a hard time. They still won't be triggered by emotion, but it's still a completely different experience. We want to do as much as we can to support them in transitions, because no one likes transition. No one likes stopping something they're interested in and doing something else, or doing something that they're used to or they're familiar with and doing something else. We don't. Pandemic, perfect example. How many people were excited to just change everything about their job, right? And if you didn't get a good notice on it, if it was like that day and you thought you're going to go back to school or go back to work, and they were like, hey, drop everything. Nope, everything's different now, and we expect you to hit the ground running. How were you able to be at your best? Probably not. As opposed to a leader, a company, a person, who said, hey, I know you're doing things this way, or you're really into this, you're doing this right now, you're swimming in the pool, or you're gaming, or you're whatever, before you're even going into it, hey, you're going to have like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do it, right? You're going to have 10 minutes to do it. You're probably still going to go in and do that thing that you want to do. But now you're able to kind of process that as you're doing it and wrap up and like, okay, I'm going to hit this really hard. And so now when that person comes to in the middle of your gaming or swimming or shopping or traveling or Netflix or whatever, now that initial feeling is a little different, right? It's like, you still might feel a little bit of a feeling like, but it's not nearly as intense. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's time. I kind of prepared for this, and it's a lot easier to transition. It's a lot easier to stop doing the thing that you care about and do the thing that this other person cares about, because your toddler doesn't care about, you might, like, but this is really important. Like, we need to go shopping, so we're not going to have anything to eat. Your toddler is not thinking with that kind of planning, right? And nor they probably don't have the capacity to do that anyways. And so accept that and know that, and meet them where they're at. Care about what they care about first, and they'll be more likely to care about what you care about. Another tip on transitions: if they're in something, spend a little bit of time doing what they're doing, or asking questions, being interested in what they're interested in. You care about what they care about, they're going to be more likely to care about what you care about. And then that transition time, is going to also go a lot smoother. Spend 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, just kind of being into what they're into. And then, transition. So yeah, the songs are helpful. The playfulness is helpful. you know, uh, but a big part of transition, why you struggle with transitions, is one, mostly because we don't prepare children for them, and we don't really think about it. We don't really get into their perspective about what that feels like when we're transitioning them, because they often, like, they don't have a lot of power in their lives. Like, they don't choose, children don't choose where they get to go, when they get to go. You know, they might get to choose what they wear, maybe a choice of a couple things of what they wear, but they don't get to choose like even the options of clothes that they have, or what's for dinner. And not to say that we give all those choices to children, because realistically, because of their lack of experience and their lack of development, like, they still have a lot to grow to handle a lot of power, that we have to slowly give them power, and some things they're not ready for. That doesn't make it any less frustrating for them not to have that power, not to get to choose when they get to go, or even that they get to go, right? Or even, they don't have, we talk about like the store is one of those things. And I know this wasn't on the list of questions, but I kind of want to talk about the store just for a second, right? Because this is another place where people really struggle, right? One, recognize that the people who organize and who organize the shelves and everything in the store, they are super intentional about how they organize things so that they play on your impulses. So they pull on your impulses, not just you as the adult, but also the child. They're very intentional about the things they put down low and their eye level to get them to want to get it. And they're very intentional. And one of my my like best friend worked for the grocery stores for a long time, and that was part of his job. And they get data on it, and they see like what's working. How do we play on the impulses board? It's really down to a science, right? Kind of like when we think about like video games and social media, like it's very intentional, right? And we often fall prey to this unconsciously, often, all the time, probably way more than what we know. But us as adults, when we fall prey to like the marketing genius of these grocery stores, we just buy the thing. Right? When we just buy it, we just buy it, or maybe we don't buy it, but we're really disappointed about it, and we're really like, that brings a lot of feelings in us. Like, I want to make more money so that we can buy these things, so we can afford these things, and like that's really important to us, right? We'll change our whole career. We'll get a whole new job that we don't like. We'll switch from a job that we do like, but it's making enough money to like live, and it's sustain ourselves, to a job that we hate and we're miserable 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day, just so we can afford these things that are marketed to us that we don't really need, but we feel like we do, right? And so when we bring children to these stores, and their impulses are played on, and their capacity for impulse control is way less than ours. It's part of that executive functioning, kind of the smart part of the brain that isn't fully developed until 25, 26, that prefrontal part. They don't even have the capacity that we do, but we take them to the stores, and then we're surprised when they fall prey to the same marketing tactics that we fall prey to all the time, right? And they have a tantrum because the world doesn't go their way, because they can't buy the thing, because we say no. It's not important to us. We say no. Oh, it's an easy decision for us. It's our decision. No, right? And that's just to recognize. I'm not saying to buy the thing. I would actually recommend to model wanting the thing and not getting the thing. I would actually recommend making a list ahead of time, right? And maybe even making them a part of that list. And if they're really young, maybe getting little pictures that they can look, oh yeah, look for the box, or they're familiar with like a certain cereal box, they can help that and have them focus on the things that you do want them to focus on, because they have nothing to do, that their mind is going to just go wild and touch everything, and they're going to be fully subjected to the experience that the grocery store wants them to have, which is an impulsive one. And so I just wanted to talk about that, because I know that some people struggle and struggle with and don't, and just realizing why children struggle with that can help us be a little bit more regulated in the moment, and help them kind of work through that and make decisions that are more helpful as opposed to harmful. And it's not a result of like you being a bad parent or a bad person or bad whatever. This is, we all, when we go to a grocery store, we all want to buy things, right? We all want to get things, and children are just learning how to develop that impulse control. And the best way that we can do that is to model it for ourselves. So maybe there are things that we want. Ah, man, I want that, but it's not on the list today. Maybe next time, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so many things we could pull out of here.
I know.
But overall, I feel like you speaking into kind of putting yourself in your child's shoes and using every moment as a connection point rather than a friction point, even if you're in a hurry, even if you've got a million things running through your head. Those are where the memories are built. And it is so funny, as a parent, you kind of look back on the mundane moments, and that's what you remember a lot of the time. So if you're choosing to use some of these and model some of these behaviors, I really like those tips. That can be really impactful in the long run. Yeah. And a lot of it is very applicable to multiple behaviors, not just transitions, but also tantrums. You talk about tantrums a lot, and big feelings, and how we as parents, we said this earlier, have the access to the toolkit that we were raised on. So that might be some of our default modes if we weren't provided space for our own big feelings. And now here we are as parents trying to provide and foster space for our kids. And you talk a lot about conscious parenting. So I'd like to kind of set up some scenarios. Some people might not think conscious parenting is for them, and conscious parenting in that you're putting yourself in your child's shoes, you're taking a moment to walk through their own feelings, to be able to navigate and model navigating their own feelings. So some of us were raised with different circumstances, whether we're facing barriers of generational abuse, poverty, systemic racism. There's so much more that can be cyclical in families that can come up without even our explicit knowledge or having it be in our mind. So given some of these scenarios, why might parents think that conscious parenting approach is not for them?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons. And it really boils down to our conditioning and how it really boils down to our conditioning and how we grew up. I'm not even necessarily going to say just how we were raised, because that would negate the impact that our society and our community also has on us too, right? And so kind of all of our experiences impact that. And the way that I really want to explain this and talk to you about this is through kind of understanding the brain a little bit, and understanding conscious parenting through the brain, kind of like a brain lens, right? I'm going to give you super quick crash course on kind of the brain in these different states. This is, I will say, disclaimer, this is an oversimplification of the brain, the body, and the relationship. They're always talking, they're integrated. They're not like separate brains or anything like that. But this is a really good way to understand it without using too many like technical terms. So we have kind of our survival state, and this is our fight or flight state, where we'll use our fight or flight skills: fight, flight, fawn, shut down. This is the first part of the brain to develop, and it's also the first part of the brain to receive information. The brain receives information bottom up, and it also develops bottom up. So emotional state, kind of what it sounds, that emotional state, and is just, emotional. And you can tell when someone's in an emotional state. When a child's in this emotional state, you might hear them say, you're not invited to my birthday party. That's like a sign that they're in an emotional state. Or, a teen might say, F you, right? I hate you, whatever it is, right? You're not my real mom, whatever. Like that's your emotional state. Survival state, you can kind of tell someone's in a survival state when they're using fight, flight, fawn, shut down, and they're not likely using any words here. Now, your executive state is kind of like the smart part of your brain, right? And this is where all your executive, skills, your, impulse control, prioritization, working memory, perspective, all that stuff is up here. Empathy, I don't know if I said it already. And conscious parenting really requires us to really lend children this part of our brain, right? Now, what happens for a lot of people are mainly operate here. If you always find yourself in a survival state or an emotional state, then it's going to be hard to really use these skills often and to lend them, to not only use them for yourself, but also have enough capacity, have enough enough ability to lend them to your children, right? And so, and another important thing about kind of the, survival skill, kind of like the bottom part of our brain, is that when this part is really active, when we're in a survival state, this part of our brain is all flying, right? And we know this in our real lives, like when we get really frustrated or mad or upset or overwhelmed, I don't know a single person who says, I make the best decisions when I'm mad and upset and angry, right? It just doesn't happen. It's not the way our brains work, right? And so someone, I saw a post, and I want to make a video about it. I don't know if I have enough time, but I'll talk about it a little bit here. I saw a post of mom saying, I don't do gentle, whatever parenting, because I got 5 kids and, I'm just trying to survive over here. And that's pretty much what she was saying, right? That I'm just trying to survive over here. Like, I don't have the time. And she said, I'm in survival mode. And a lot of people took it like offense to it, and people were like triggered. But again, I approach with empathy. So I saw it as like, this is something like, this is a parent who is struggling, who doesn't feel like she has the resources, may not have the resources. And when I say resources, I don't mean necessarily money, but I mean like the resources in herself, in her body, to access these skills often, right? And so she's going to just keep operating from a survival state or an emotional state. And when we're in a survival state, we're going to ask ourselves, we're more likely to ask ourselves, or say, really, this behavior must be punished, right? When we're in an emotional state, we're going to be more likely to say or think, this behavior must be stopped. Now, when in a regulated executive state, we're going to be more likely to ask, how can I help this child with this problem? What skills can I teach this child to solve their problem, right? And those very different questions. And those, there's the thing like, if you want better answers, you got to ask better questions, right? And so when we're thinking of just how do I punish them, or how do I stop the behavior, we're going to get answers, but we're not going to get very good answers, right? And now if we answer, how do I help them? We're going to get answers to that too, right? And again, we think that it's quicker to say that stop wrestling, or give them the ball back, or to just kind of step in and not, be conscious. And understandable, especially when it's a new skill too. The other thing you have to think, like, this is a new skill that requires you to, fail and mess up and try again. That requires a certain level of safety that you don't have down here when you're in survival state. You're just trying to survive, and even in this video that I'm talking about, I'm not going to say the, creator's name, but she was like, my job is to teach them to survive. And if that's how you see your job, you're going to be more likely to use survival skills, fear, and punishment. And things like, yeah, things like systemic racism impact, how people see their role, right? If you think that if if the way that you're perceiving, if the way that you see the world, if you see the world as trying to, you know, kill or murder or incarcerate your baby, right, your child, then then it's understandable why you would say, hey, like, I'm gonna, priority is survival, right? And I want to encourage people to think about the thrival skills, right? Not just the survival skills, but the thrival skills to thrive, right? Because a lot of times, maybe you do, they do survive, right? But then they're surviving with mental health challenges. They're surviving not knowing how to, engage in a relationship, how to solve problems with the partner, how to express their emotions, how to identify their emotions, how to talk to their, boss when they have a problem, how to set boundaries. We're not teaching those skills. And so, yeah, you might have reached your goal for have them to survive. And I understand where you would feel where like that's where you're at. And just know that there are, as you will, I'm sure, say to your children, like, there's consequence for your actions. That's true. There's going to be consequences for that. And so you might not choose conscious parenting because that's just where you're at. And I try to help people see, how do you send the question is like, how do you break out of that? And so with empathy, I try to help people see like what that outcome is, to just be conscious, to become conscious of what that kind of the outcome is and what they're doing, be conscious of what they're modeling, be conscious of what they're teaching, be conscious of where their self-control, where their power is, their self-control is, as opposed to their other control of trying to control others. And, try to get them to that place of wanting to do something different. Because, a lot of people will, I'll do coaching sessions all the time, and people will, in my kind of first question I ask is like, tell me about the kind of parent you want to be and the impact that you want to have on your child or children. And, a lot of people come and say, I don't want to be like my parents. I don't want to raise my kid the way I was raised. And like, I know like that's not like enough. I know you probably want more. But I celebrate. I'm like, well, yes, like, clap, 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 clap. Yes, celebration. You made it there. Like you made it to the first step. You're conscious and aware that, you want to do something different. You've set a goal, some kind of, pretty ambiguous goal, but to do something different. And then I say, we celebrate that, give yourself a pat on the back. A lot of people don't get there. Now we need to move forward and talk about what that actually looks like. What that vision actually, what that, family, what that vision of yourself as a parent looks like, so that we can move towards it. Because if we aren't able to really envision or know what we're doing, what we're moving towards, or what are the skills, or what to do otherwise, and then we're likely going to be stuck where we're at, because what you focus on, you're going to get more of. So let's focus on what we want to do, who we want to be, right? Kind of like with kids, tell them what to do instead of what not to do, right? Because you focus on what not to do. I don't want to be like my parents. Then that's going to be the focus, right? And that's what you're going to be thinking, as opposed to in those moments where those kind of discipline moments of like, you're kind of at this fork in the road. And your mother, your father just wants coming out of your mouth like involuntarily, and you want to say, you're fine, get over it, right? Like it's coming out. Your consciousness can allow to, oh, it's coming, it's happening. Pause, breathe. Oh, okay. Let me say this other thing. And I have this other thing to say because it's something that I've talked about, I've practiced, right? I've had that in my mind. Like, oh, instead, that, you see, how are you feeling? That you seem like frustrated, you seem upset, whatever, something that is allowing the child to look inward, identify how they're feeling, or helping them identify how they feel, as opposed to ignoring how they feel, or trying to get them to ignore how they feel, or to ignore their emotions, or shove it down, or run away from it. And so, yeah, that's where that kind of goes. That's the reason I understand why people struggle to get there. And I hope that if you follow me on, you're following me on social media, or if you're at this conference, you're likely already kind of made the decision, hey, I want to do something different, or hey, I want to improve. So celebrate that. Mm-hmm. And what's important here, because when we talk about the other kind of like answer I get when I ask people, tell me about the kind of parent you want to be, that's like, okay, well, that's not going to be, I hear you, but we need to talk about it, is I want the perfect family. I want to be the perfect mom. I want to be like that. I want to be like that mom, right? That perfect, peaceful mom. And so I usually try to like unpack where that comes from, right? Because like where did you see this perfect, peaceful mom? Like, like on, they'll say like, maybe like a TV show, or like to Instagram, and okay. And then just to like recognize, I say that to like, let's talk about this idea of perfect, because again, that's something that we likely got from our upbringing of trying to be perfect and getting it all right, which is something that's still here very often. And let's talk about that, because what people often do is they see Brady Bunch mom, or this Instagram mom who perfectly curates her feed and takes like a little snapshot of a picture and a moment in time, and it's a beautiful background with a nice caption about how lovely things are, or how the journey is and everything's perfect, and they're able to curate that on Instagram. And Instagram is where it gets really bad. And I say, and that's why I started on TikTok first, because when I first got on Instagram, I feel a little bit differently about Instagram now, being on a little bit more, and having to, and meeting a lot more creators. But my first kind of the way I viewed Instagram first was, it was just this place where people curate their feed. Like, it's hard, it's easy. You take a snapshot picture and pretend everything's all perfect and great and put that out to the world. It's a little bit harder to take a video of everything perfect. And so that's why I was on TikTok, because I felt a lot more authentic. And I feel like you still get a lot more authenticity on TikTok, and you don't normally kind of hear those things. You usually say, oh, on TikTok, I saw all these perfect interactions, because you can't fake that as much in a video. And so people are comparing themselves to this idea of perfect that doesn't even exist. And then when we don't meet this non-existent, unreachable, perfect ideal of a parent person, then we shame ourselves and say, you're such a bad parent, you're such a bad mom, and you're so stupid, you always get this wrong. This is why you should just never, blah, 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 and all that stuff starts coming back up from our childhood. All the negative talk that we received that's become our self-talk, it comes back up, and it actually holds us back from improving or shaming ourselves. Now, there's a difference between shame and guilt, and like, there's a difference saying, I messed up. I feel bad about what I said to, my child or whoever, and I want to do better next time. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to do better next time, right? Shame is you putting it all on yourself, like you are a bad person. Guilt is, I made a mistake, right? And it's okay to feel bad about making a mistake. Like, it's healthy, right? That we feel bad when we make a mistake. Just don't attach that to who you are as a person and say like, yeah, I feel bad. Yeah, I can do better next time. What am I going to do next time? You make a mistake, it's okay. that's also another opportunity to teach them how to repair a relationship after you rupture it. Because guess what? They're going to be making mistakes too, all throughout their lives. And so it's not on, like, it's actually not helpful for us to give them this idea that we're perfect, even, right? Mm-hmm. We don't make mistakes, right? Because then when they make mistakes, like, how, like, we don't make mistakes around here. That's what's been modeled to me. That's what's been shown to me, right? And so I say, embrace your mistakes. Make mistakes out loud. Oops, I made a mistake. It's okay. I can pick it up, or I can make it better. I can apologize, whatever it is, right? Those mistakes are opportunities too, to model and to teach, right? And so with all of this, I want to say the big message that, like, you didn't hear anything I said today. The most important thing that I want you to walk away with after you close this laptop or your phone or whatever, the thing that I want you to walk away with hearing and knowing, writing down, is that perfect doesn't exist. Avoid trying to be a perfectionist. Be an improvementist. The goal isn't to be perfect every day. The goal is to improve a little every day.
Thank you for that. We all need that grace in our lives, because I think sometimes we all feel like that mom that you mentioned in the TikTok video, where I don't have time for this. Whether you're a working parent or you don't feel like you've got a good support system, you can't rely on your partner, maybe, your childcare is constantly closed in the day and age that we're in right now in the pandemic. I mean, there's so many barriers that are more mental than anything, because as you're breaking down, some of these things don't take as much time as we think they do, but they do take practice, and that's where it comes in. So I appreciate you giving us that permission, for lack of better terminology, to be patient with ourselves and to practice ourselves and to model those things, because that improvementist journey is what we're all striving for. If we can approach it in that way, we're not going to strive for perfection, and we're not going to model perfection for our kids. So I so appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. I just wanted one last note on that. The more you practice, the quicker it's going to get. And, sometimes you're doing the long form, you're having the conversation. Sometimes you're doing the short form, and you're saying, say, get your ball back, right? And you're helping them. So just know that sometimes you're doing the long version, sometimes you're doing the short version. You don't have to, figure out what your needs are in the moment, what their needs are in the moment, and marry the two. Yeah.
I've got just one last question for you before we wrap up today, and it's a really important one. So I'm hoping we can take some time to talk about it. But your messages on TikTok on generational cycles are so heartbreakingly important as we educate the next generation of empathetic adults and world changers. You mentioned how we talk about events that have happened to us in our lifetime, the pandemic being one, will impact our generation in the future. But sometimes it seems harder for us to talk about how generational disparities happen the same way. How do you recommend we start talking about social justice in our own homes in an age-appropriate way, so that we can be a part of fostering and raising the next generation of world changers?
You know what? I'd say, don't just talk about it, be about it. Now I'm gonna say a bunch of stuff but it's really, don't just talk about it, be about it. Yes, reading books, and I think a lot of people would suggest books with children and people with a variety of background, a variety of cultures, and it is helpful. And that's something that I would suggest to do as well. But that's not, I don't think that's the most impactful thing that we can do. I think the most impactful thing that we can do is to model what learning looks like and what action looks like. There's this, everyone's kind of talking about, like, being an ally, which is great. And I would say being an ally is someone who learns, kind of, you're learning, maybe things that you did not know. You're hearing the perspectives of the, the community you're allied with, and, you're maybe supporting them largely from afar, right? And that's really great for children to see too, that you're, supporting, and when things happen, are you, how are you kind of standing up for what you believe in, right? And how are you encouraging them to do that themselves? And I think even a part of kind of the conscious parenting, as opposed to the traditional, fear, power-based control parenting, also is, I think even just by that action, you're being helpful, because when you think about it, the fear and control-based parenting it's doing the same thing that society has done to marginalized groups throughout history. Marginalized groups will say like, hey, there's this problem, we're marginalized, we have issues here. And, the group in power says, who cares? We don't care, whatever, stop complaining, get over it. You should be grateful for what you have, be happy we brought you over here, kind of things like that. It's not happening. Like, police brutality isn't a thing. You're just complaining. It's just because you're that way, because you deserve it, right? It's because, and so I think even making the shift from conscious parenting is being helpful too. I think it's also being an ally. And I want to give like one kind of like example of just of and I can give many examples, but one example of where this has happened. Has anyone ever heard the phrase like, they have the authority to kill a minority? Who said that? Ice Cube said it. And what was the response? What was the response when NWA, said, the police coming straight from the underground, got it bad because I'm brown, and not the other color, so the police think they have the authority to kill a minority. So Ice Cube said this, and what was the response from kind of the society, right? It was their music was banned. They weren't allowed to, perform at a lot of different venues. They weren't, played in a lot of radio airways, but they were people who were frustrated with how they were being treated, and they were speaking out about it. And they were really ignored. And fast forward, right, 2020, same things are still happening. No surprise to the, groups who are marginalized. No surprise to me. For me, when George Floyd happened, it was like another one, right? But because this particular incident was kind of like Rodney King, was filmed and shown, and we have smartphones, so it's smartphones, and so it was, everyone got to see it. So there was like, oh, okay, like, oh, police brutality, maybe it is a thing that does happen to Black people. And okay, maybe we will believe you. It took me watching an 8-minute video of a man being choked to death for me to come to this realization. But hey, maybe we will wake up and maybe make some changes, or at least, maybe we will. And so just listening to people, right? Listening to marginalized groups when they talk, right? And not immediately dismissing it because it's not your experience or because you don't understand. Because that's what we have the tendency to do. And then we'll talk about it around, Thanksgiving and our tables, and grandma and grandpa will come over and they'll say some stuff that's like really, really outdated. And, you may not necessarily agree, but you're like, I kind of get where you're coming from because you've been hearing those messages and you haven't been listening to the marginalized groups. So go out and follow Black creators, and not just Black creators, like creators with different experiences that you have, because the perspective, like, you're not going to be able to fully understand, even if you study, like you just research. If you don't listen to Black people, you will not understand, you know, our experience. And we're not a monolith. And so we have a variety of different experiences. So don't just follow one and think, I know the Black experience, I get it now. You probably don't, right? And that's okay that you don't get it, right? It's okay. That is okay that you don't get it. You know, the fact that you're willing to listen and hear and understand and learn more, that makes you an ally, and modeling that for your children, that's huge. Now, I'm gonna take it one more step, because there's more we can do than being an ally, right? And this, might feel a little uncomfortable, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be an ally, but that's a little too much. Being an accomplice, I mean, not just talk about it, be about it. How do you show up when these issues happen, when these things happen, when you know, when a marginalized group is talking about an issue and they're saying how you can help, who you can call, who you can write a letter to, who you can retweet, who you can, you know, where you can show up to protest, you can make a sign, where you can donate, where you can, you know, be an accomplice, right? Not just an ally who sits back and like, yeah, that is bad. Ooh, yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, y'all got it bad. I acknowledge it. I'm an ally, which is cool. I'm glad, honestly, at this point, like, I'll take that because a lot of people won't even acknowledge it, won't do that. So I'll take that, you know, and hopefully on some point in your journey, you feel comfortable to taking that next step and you improve into becoming an accomplice. But that's what you can do. And when your children see you growing up listening to people who don't look like you, to marginalized groups, and instead of immediately dismissing them and asking questions and humanizing them, because that is the function, that's the reason slavery could not have happened if we weren't dehumanized. Like, it wasn't that like your ancestors were like evil people, you know. I don't think that, like, when I say your ancestors, I'm not talking about your ancestors, but I'm talking about generally, because, you know, people like, oh, well, my ancestors, like, blah, 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 that wasn't me, that was them. And even, yeah, that was them. I'm like, they're not, it's not to say that they were evil people. I don't believe that they were evil people. What I believe, what happened is that Black people were seen, African Americans were seen as less than people, as not people. And that's why all the things that happened to us, the separation of families, the rape, the murder, all those things, even post-slavery, the lynchings didn't happen until after slavery, and, you know, bringing the kids and people taking pictures with, you know, people who were brutalized, that, you know, that could not have happened if they saw us as human. And for them to not see us as human, they had to have a big push to dehumanize us. And so that's where, like, a lot of implicit bias is still present everywhere in our society, because that doesn't just go away. We don't just go from you're not a human to, oh, you're a human, and we look at you, we see you as not a threat, as all those things that they were saying about, like, those things are still present, right? In our media, in our systems, in our implicit bias, even in our own minds, because we see that media and it's perpetuated over and over and over again. So being aware of those things, being aware of the implicit bias and your own biases, and unpacking those things, unpacking them with your children. And I wouldn't say don't have the conversation about slavery with your 3-year-old, but as they grow older, you know, see where they're at in their development and slowly give them a little bit more and more information. Maybe at 3, at 4, it's a conversation. It's these larger ideas about treating people with respect and not just overpowering someone, and listening to another person, and, you know, and empathizing with another person and hearing them out. All things I'm telling you to do in conscious parenting. You know, it starts off with that, right? And in the books, right? And as they get older and as they're exposed to more things, they will be exposed to more things. Again, it's ever present, right? We don't live in a colorblind society. You start talking to them more and more and sharing about things that you learned on your journey, right? And so that's how you kind of start to talk to your children about it. That's how you raise a generation of children who are a little bit more empathetic, who are more I hesitate to use buzzwords because people hear a buzzword and they get completely shut off, but that's how you raise children who are anti-racist and compassionate to all people. And that's how we make the world a better place. It's not just about Black people, African Americans, Black people. It's about every group, every marginalized group, because guess what? And here's the punchline. This is the perfect way to wrap it up. When you do that to people, when you marginalize groups and you dismiss them, and you build systems that are either intentionally or unintentionally, put them down and put a group of people into survival mode. We can talk about Native Americans too, right? They're going to be in survival mode, which means that they're going to be less likely to use these skills, or they're going to have less opportunity to develop these skills, to use these skills. And it's going to impact you in our society in a multitude of ways. So if you want to create a compassionate world and move and build the foundations for world peace, where we take each other's needs in consideration. And it starts with compassion within your very own household.
Well said. Well said. And I hope everyone else sees that common thread, even within your last answer. When we approach everything with empathy, when we model empathy with our kids, we're not going to be pushing things under the rug, and we're not going to be asking our communities to do the same thing, pushing things under the rug, pretending they don't exist. We're validating feelings, we're creating space for experiences with our kids, with ourselves, and within our communities. So I just so appreciate everything you've talked about today. It is so, I hope that everyone saw today, these small steps can be so impactful in the long run, and it can really help change our world. Like you're saying, we're raising our world changers to have a different experience in the future than we've created and we've put ourselves in right now. So thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate your time, and thank you for everyone listening as well. For those of you wanting to learn more, definitely give Chazz Lewis a follow. You can find him on TikTok at Mr. Chazz with 2 Z's. Or if you're not on TikTok, he's active on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook as well. He has a podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which you can find by searching his name. Thank you again so much to our listeners for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.